I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Last week we looked at a bunch of water vehicles, so today we're doing sorta the opposite of that, as I'll be giving you my top 7 desert vehicles.
But first we have to define what a desert vehicle is.
Because officially the original toy line had just like 2 of them. It would be simple to say any vehicle that's tan-colored counts, but that would be too easy. And it would mean stuff like the Mobile Command Center or the Vamp Mark II would be desert vehicles.
Which I think is going a bit far.
I'll make one exception, but for the most part, this list will just deal with vehicles that are clearly desert themed.
Oh, and like last time, just because a vehicle isn't on the list doesn't mean that I think it's bad, just that it isn't one of the best.
The only really bad one I can think of is the Desert Apache, mostly because it doesn't even fit G.I.Joe figures properly.
Anyway, on to the list.
Number 7. The Slugger version 2. And we start with the one exception I'm making. The Slugger here doesn't have anything to do with the desert, except its color scheme, but it's such a great vehicle, I couldn't not have it on the list, albeit in last place. It's also proved that even the doomed 1997 line could produce some great stuff, as this toy is from that year. Number 6. The Sand Razor. Okay, this thing looks pretty ridiculous, but pretty cool too. It's like, what if a HISS tank was a dune buggy? Sort of. It's like a souped up desert awe striker. I'll admit this may not be a popular choice to put on the list, but I feel it has its charm.
You should probably ignore the sound attack feature though.
Number 5. The Desert Humvee. From the 2005 Valor vs. Venom line, this vehicle looks a bit plain, but it's still pretty great. It's a more realistic looking vehicle than you'd expect compared to Hasbro's take on a Humvee from the original line, the Hammer. And though that is the superior looking one, the Desert Humvee is neat in its own way. Number 4. The Desert Striker. From 2001, this is a new take on the Vamp Jeep, and unlike Mark II, this one is labeled as a desert vehicle, hence the name. It looks cool, has plenty of play features, and is a great addition to the Joe fleet of Jeeps. The working missile launcher looks a bit out of place though.
I could have done without that.
Number 3. The Desert Fox. The first toy from the original line on the list. Yeah, there were very few real desert vehicles in that line, so the Fox could be said to make this list by default, but it's great on its own. I'd almost call this another take on the Vamp 2, but it's different enough for that to not be the case. Pity that it shares a name with a nickname for a Nazi general, namely Rommel. Also pity the driver is called Skidmark. Yeah, Hasbro did not do their best work naming these toys.
Okay, time for numbers 2 and 1.
The winners are...
I'm just kidding, there actually are proper numbers 2 and 1 on the list this time, but the following entry might be the most controversial one on the list.
Number 2. The Sand Serpent. It looks awesome and doesn't make a lick of sense. It's a repaint of the 2009 Night Raven, which was based on the 1986 Night Raven, which was based on the real-life Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, which is a high-altitude aircraft.
High altitude!
So for a version of that to have a desert camo pattern is patently stupid, but it looks great, so who cares? Also, you wouldn't expect something called a Sand Serpent to be able to fly.
But who cares? It looks great!
And the number 1 desert vehicle is the Cobra Scorpion. Okay, so this may also be a controversial pick, as this vehicle is from 1994, and it looks like a souped-up ferret ATV, but it's one of my favorite vehicles from the last few years of the original line.
And yes, it is a desert vehicle according to the blueprints.
It looks cool, and unlike most missile launchers from that time, the one on this doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. I think the only reason they didn't call this the Desert Scorpion is because there was already a figure with that name. And that was the list. Did I leave any out? Or do you have a vehicle you'd put in the number 1 spot? Let me know in the comments below.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?
I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain.
Phew, made it through the entire video without accidentally saying the word dessert even once.